Welcome, y'all. It's Wes with DIY Food Plot Pro. Thank you so much for joining us. Today's episode, we are talking about EHD, blue tongue, and we're also talking about water holes. And are those good ideas for our farms? Is that helping or is that hurting EHD? We dive deep into the data to determine whether these water holes are a plus or a minus for us, and I think it's going to be a eye-opening video for a lot of folks who either already have water sources on their farm or are looking to add water sources on their farm. Here in Western Kentucky, we are extremely dry right now. The crops are suffering. We've gone around 2 to 3 weeks without rain. With our poor topsoil, we are in severe drought conditions right now. The water sources are dwindling very quickly. The sloughs, the creeks, the rivers are going way down. A lot of our wet weather water sources have already completely dried up. So I think it's a very good time to talk about EHD as it's hitting across parts of the United States. I want to go over what it is, how we prevent it, and some of the management roles that we can use on our properties to hopefully help our deer stay away from this terrible disease. So EHD and blue tongue are both hemorrhagic diseases, viral diseases that whitetails contract, and essentially makes them run an extremely high fever, go to water sources, and oftentimes they die. This is generally much worse in the north than it is the south because the folks in the south deal with EHD or blue tongue much more regularly than the folks in the north because we often have extreme droughts and hot, dry weather during the fall months when this is most likely going to spread on the farms. The whitetails that the EHD does not kill transfer some immunity to the fawns, and therefore your herd begins to build up small amounts of immunity to EHD or blue tongue, where the places up north that experience it very rarely, it can be much more devastating because there's no immunity built up in the northern states because it's much more rare. EHD is transmitted by the Midge gnat, also known as the no-see-ums. EHD and blue tongue are often worse in dry years because available water sources shrink and the available water becomes warm, stagnant water that's often getting stirred up by whitetails and other animals that are going to these water sources to get water. Now, as most of you know, whitetails can and do get the majority of their water during the growing season from the plants that they consume. However, during a drought period, moisture levels drop significantly, and at that time whitetails will seek out water sources to fulfill that water need that they have. So what do deer look like that have contracted EHD or blue tongue? Oftentimes these whitetails you will find in water sources or around water sources dead. That's a very good giveaway that you've had an EHD outbreak on the farm. There'll be multiple deer usually scattered in and around that water source. So we've all seen those pictures and videos of whitetails floating in those stagnant ponds. Another great way that I find to find these whitetails is their hoofs. That is, to me, the 100% sure way that I can tell a whitetail either has or has gotten past the EHD or the blue tongue virus. I found one on a new farm that I leased a couple years ago, probably a mid-150s buck, just a good, solid, mass, high-quality buck for Western Kentucky. This was probably like late August, so season's not open yet, and I see this whitetail just laying dead out in the field, picked clean by the coyotes. I went home and did a little bit of studying. At that time, I didn't know about the hoof deal for EHD. So I went back and I studied that, and I learned that the hoofs are often damaged. And so I went back the very next day and found that whitetail's legs, and sure enough, the hoofs were just terrible condition. They were rotten off, just in really bad shape, and that whitetail died of EHD. We've also killed some whitetails on the outfit that, looking at the racks, you would think 4 or 5 year old buck. Looking at their body, you think 2-year-old buck. Get them inside and you get the light on them and you can start seeing the damage on the hoofs. You realize that deer was sick from EHD. He might have got past that disease. It really took a toll on that whitetail's body. So these are some good signs to watch out for on your property. Let's go over the breeding cycle of the midge. So after the larvae hatch, they will live in submerged mud at the edge of the water in less than 2 inches deep. That's very relevant in what we're going to talk about later, so remember that. The ideal conditions for midges to thrive is warm, a lot of sunlight, a lot of nutrients, low in oxygen, and shallow, murky water. So those are the things that we are looking for as land managers to avoid when we're dealing with water holes on our property. Disturbed mud is also ideal for these midges to be able to reproduce. That's something that we see in the whitetail world. We find a pond that's beginning to dry up, you will see where deer and hogs and everything else will walk on that mud flat to get to the water to drink. That's disturbing that mud, and that is helping that midge reproduce at a high rate. Okay, so let's get into the water holes and how we set these up to have the least amount of impact that we possibly can have EHD or blue tongue on our farm. That's what we're all looking for. We don't want to pass a deer 2 or 3 years, get him to 4 years old, and then blue tongue hit him. We had some of that last year here on the farm, and it absolutely sucks to pass a good deer for 2 years hoping that he's going to get really good, and then EHD or blue tongue kill him before you even get a chance to hunt him in August or September. So while I'm out doing consulting in the wintertime, I have seen just about every type of water hole imaginable. Oftentimes, I cringe when I see these water holes because so many of these are set up in a way are very positive for this midge. When we are setting these up on our properties, we need to absolutely take the most time and the most caution when setting these up and try to set these up in a way that they are the least favorable for this midge to be able to survive and reproduce on our properties. I always cringe when I'm out consulting and I see a lot of these water holes that are shallow, muddy, murky water holes out in the middle of a food plot where they're getting tons and tons of sunshine. I mean, you're checking so many boxes for the midge to be able to reproduce in that area. What we're looking for as whitetail managers, when we're trying to manage our land and we're trying to provide water for these whitetails, we are looking for dark areas. You can see behind me, we are in a heavy cut travel corridor here, but there's not a significant amount of light right here where this water hole is because there is 3 or 4 trees surrounding this water hole. That helps to keep that water cooler in the summertime, therefore reducing the chances that the midge can reproduce in that water hole. A couple other things that we've got going on here. This is a deep water source that does not have very gradual slopes down. It's straight off. This is something that I firmly believe in. If we don't have the environment for that midge to be able to reproduce, then this is a very big plus. These water holes are a very big plus. Now, if we came out here with a tractor and loader and just pushed a spot down here in the bottom of we're kind of in a little ditch, a little holler here. I came out here with a tractor and dammed up a little spot and pushed a big water hole out. Then all of a sudden, I feel like we're meeting a lot of the factors, what that midge needs to be able to reproduce. We have a muddy bank. We have high nutrients that are flowing down maybe off the ag fields, flowing down into that ditch, high organic matter. That's another something that the midge really needs in their water. The way that we have set this up, we have not set this up in the very bottom of this holler where it's going to collect a lot of runoff. And so far, I've not seen any cases where the whitetails have been able to drink all this down yet. We got a 300-gallon tank here behind us with very steep banks. It's about 2.5 foot deep. This current setup is a very safe water hole for whitetails, right? Because as we read earlier, 2 inches or less is what they're looking for. Muddy banks, disturbed soil. This doesn't fit any of that criteria. This is 24 to 30 inches deep with absolutely no silt banks. It's straight off on the edges. We have cool water because we're in shade. Very little in the way of organic matter or nutrients that are in this water. This was just straight water, nothing added to it whatsoever. I think this is a very safe way of doing it. I would encourage you to put water on your farms. I think it's a very great and beneficial thing for our whitetails and for all wildlife. But I would encourage you to put that in the shade, somewhere close to bedding cover. I would recommend trying to fill in a lot of those problem areas that we have. If we have a pond on the property that is very shallow and meets a lot of these standards, that we either dig that pond out or we have water running into that pond to fill that pond back up and get that pond deeper during these droughtier times. But these are all things that, in my opinion, are above average management. But there's nothing worse than having a 150 or a 160 on your farm that you pass for a couple years and then all of a sudden EHD comes and kills him before you ever get a chance to hunt him. So if you need help setting up your deer hunting farms, you can go to my website, www.diyfoodplotpro.com, to schedule a boots on the ground visit where I'll come to your property this winter and scout that property and develop a plan to make that property hunt the best that it possibly can. Also have food plot seed on there. If that's something that interests you, you can definitely get everything that you need on there. www.diyfoodplotpro.com. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Y'all smash that like and subscribe button.